I am an economic historian, and I'm interested in understanding when and how countries became rich in historical perspective. And in particular, I'm interested in understanding when and how countries became innovative. In the last 10 years, the literature has shown that differences in cultural traits and economic attitudes today can be explained by historical events that happened centuries ago.
Yes.
So I'm looking for census, the population census, at the end of the 19th century. Well, economic history can be informative also for modern policy. Because through economic history, we can, for example, understand why some policies are more or less efficient in different contexts, or why policies can be easier or harder to implement in different countries. But more in general, through economic history, we can understand which are the deep factors that determines whether a country grow or a country will stagnate in terms of economic outcomes. What I've been studying in the last years is like the public provision of mass education in Europe at the end of the 19th century, and I found that there are important economic returns to investment in education. On the other side, this opens up also a new set of questions, like when do people start investing in education, and what is the relationship between education and technological change, for example? It must be a very rich guy.
Last year's income, and this is this year's.
I see. Well, in economic history, we collect our own data, and we use primary and secondary sources. Example of primary sources are contemporary census data or original manuscripts, which we find data on prices and wages, for example. Church registry is also very important sources of data for us, and that allows us to reconstruct the demographic history of a town, a region, or even a country. Then once we have our own data, then we can apply state-of-the-art statistical technies in order to distinguish between just simple correlation from real causal effects. Our name is got a PhD from Harvard. The D-IAS is an interdisciplinary institute with leading scholars in a different field, and such a diverse environment is very motivating and inspiring for me, because people bring new ideas, different perspectives, and you are forced to think out of the box. On the other side, I'm also working at the Department of Business and Economics at SDU, and this is a great research environment, because there's a large group of people working in economic history, and then opens up like potential for collaboration and exchange of ideas.